There are those who claim the Adam and Eve story came from ancient Egypt. This claim comes up often, but when you examine it carefully, it does not hold up in a direct or textual sense. What does exist are shared ancient Near Eastern themes, not an Egyptian source text for Adam and Eve. So here is a precise scholarly breakdown. The short answer is that there's no ancient Egyptian story that corresponds to Adam and Eve in structure, theology, or narrative. There's no Egyptian text describing a single first man and woman, created uniquely by one God, placed in a morally ordered garden, given a command involving obedience, whose disobedience introduces death or moral rupture into humanity. Those elements are distinctive to Genesis 2 and 3. Why the claim exists at all? People usually point to three Egyptian motifs, but none are actually parallel once examined closely. Egyptian creation myths, Atum, Ptah, etc. What Egypt has: multiple gods, creation via bodily fluids, speech or emanation, humans formed incidentally, not morally, no fall, no sin, no covenant. So the key difference is that Egyptian creation is cosmic and cyclical, not moral or historical. There's no moment where humanity falls from an original state of innocence. Genesis, by contrast, is monotheistic, centers on moral agency, introduces death through disobedience, treats the story as human history, not mythic cosmology, and the Egyptian tree of life imagery sometimes depicts sacred trees, trees associated with nourishment or divine presence, goddesses offering food from trees. But there is no forbidden tree, no command not to eat, no serpent deceiver, no moral consequence tied to eating. The Genesis tree is not just life-giving, it is juridical, a test of obedience. That concept does not exist in Egyptian religion. Egyptian views of death. Egyptians believed humans were always mortal. Death is a natural state. The problem is afterlife logistics, not moral corruption. Genesis teaches that death enters as a result of sin. Humanity was not created to die. Death is an intruder, not a feature. This is a theological inversion of Egyptian belief, not a borrowing. What scholars actually say. Even highly critical scholars like John Walton, James Hoffmeyer, Kenneth Kitchen agree on this point. Genesis shows far more structural similarity to Mesopotamian texts than Egyptian ones, and even those similarities are thematic, not derivative. Egyptian religion lacks a fall of man, a moral test at creation, a universal human ancestor pair. So the bottom line, there's no Egyptian Adam and Eve. There's no Egyptian fall narrative. There's no Egyptian moral creation story. Shared ancient symbolism is not borrowing. Genesis introduces a radically different worldview, moral history, not mythic cycle. So what characters in Egyptian mythology and trees are they referring to? When people claim Egyptian influence on Adam, Eve, and the tree, they are usually misidentifying specific Egyptian deities, symbols, and trees. So here's a precise map of who and what they are actually referring to and why the comparison breaks down. Isis and the sacred tree, the sycamore fig. Isis is the goddess of life, healing, motherhood, and resurrection. The tree involved is the sycamore fig, or Ficus sycamoris. What the imagery shows is that Isis, or sometimes Hathor, is emerging from or standing within a sycamore tree, offering food or water to the deceased in the afterlife. Why people link this to Eve? Female figure plus tree plus nourishment. Visual similarity only. Why it fails? This is afterlife substance, not creation. No first woman, no prohibition, no deception, no moral test, no fall. The tree is a hospital, not a command boundary. Hathor as the Lady of the Sycamore. Hathor is the goddess of fertility, joy, sexuality, and motherhood. It's the sycamore fig. The role of the tree is the portal between worlds. Nourishment for souls, symbol of regeneration. Why this is not Eden. The tree is beneficial without restriction. There's no obedience or disobedience dynamic. There's no loss of immortality. There's no historical human pair. Atum and the first humans, Shu and Tefnut. Atum was the creator god. Shu was air and Tefnut was moisture, the first divine pair. How creation happens? Atum creates them through bodily emission, spitting, or else or something else. Why people try to map this to Adam and Eve? First pair, male and female origin. Why it fails completely? They're gods, not humans. No garden, no tree, no command, no sin, no death introduced. This is cosmic biology, not moral history. Osiris, the tree and resurrection. Osiris is the god of death and resurrection. The tree involved is a tamarisk or acacia tree that grows around his coffin. What happens? Osiris's body becomes enclosed in a tree. Symbolizes rebirth and kingship. Why people make the comparison? Tree plus life plus resurrection symbolism. Why it doesn't map? Osiris dies first. Resurrection applies to gods and kings, not humanity. No creation story, no moral fault. The acacia tree. Tree of life imagery. Acacia, associated with ma'at, endurance, sacred space. The role? Symbol of eternal life, used in sacred architecture, connected to rebirth and continuity. Critical difference from Genesis? Acacia represents already existing immortality. Genesis tree is conditional immortality. Eating is a legal moral act, not symbolic nourishment. The serpent. Apep versus the Genesis serpent. Apep, or Apophis, is a chaos serpent. What Apep does? He attacks the sun god Ra. Represents disorder and cosmic threat. Why people link him to Genesis? Serpent imagery. Why this fails? Apep is not a deceiver. He does not tempt humans. He does not speak. He is not subtle or moral. He is raw chaos. Genesis serpent is intellectual, deceptive, and juridical, which is entirely different. So, Genesis element, Egyptian counterpart, and why it fails. Adam, there's no Egyptian counterpart. There's no first human male. Eve, Egyptian counterpart, Isis or Hathor, claimed. Why it fails. They're goddesses, not humans. Tree of knowledge, Egyptian counterpart, sycamore or acacia. Why it fails. No prohibition or test. Fall, Egyptian counterpart, none. There's no moral rebellion. Serpent deceiver, Egyptian counterpart, Apep, chaos monster, not tempter. Death through sin, Egyptian counterpart, none. Mortality is always assumed. The core mistake. People confuse symbolic religious art with moral historical narrative. Egyptian religion is about maintaining cosmic order or ma'at. Genesis is about breaking moral order and its consequences. Those are opposite frameworks. The bottom line. Egypt has sacred trees, female deities, serpents, life symbolism. Egypt does not have a first human couple, forbidden tree, moral command, fall of humanity, or death entering through sin. Genesis is not an Egyptian remix. It is a theological confrontation with that entire worldview. Hope that's been helpful. Thanks for tuning in.